good.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the November meeting of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. Are there any non-members here, members of the public, new people? Welcome. Tonight we have a packed program that's all about amateur astronomy. Amateur astronomy is about looking at incredible stuff in the sky. So we have talks about what things you can hope to look at, reports from people about cool stuff they've seen, stories of incredible travel adventures to go see things that are cool in the sky, a talk on how to take astrophotographs, and reports, a talk on how to build something that helps your observing, and a talk on reporting on people who have given some of their personal time to help kids see incredibly cool stuff in the sky. In other words, I hope to have some cool stuff in the meeting for you tonight. First, Tim Colton tells us what we can hope to see in the November sky. Emphasis on the word hope.
Okay. Okay. This is actually a great time of year for Pegasus and Andromeda, and with it, the Andromeda Galaxy. Now remember, I'm taking a look here at stuff for beginners and people who just like to look over good old stuff. They're all nice and high in the sky, and Andromeda is one of those wonderful things that if you can actually look far enough, if you've got nice dark skies, you can actually see Andromeda naked eye, though from the city, it's not likely to happen. There's a great square of Pegasus, which is going to be your road mark, because the constellation of Andromeda is pretty hard to make out. And there you've got the Andromeda Galaxy all sitting there waiting for you to look at it. So we'll give you one little dirty trick for finding it. Oh yes, there we go. I had to give you the obligatory picture that you'll never see with your telescope. Actually, you'll see something pretty close to that, just not quite as bright. Now, the other one that you've got right down there next to the wondrously named Enif, I've always wondered about that particular name. It makes me want to sneeze. It's the H1N1 star. Yeah, sorry. I know, I'm a swine. Anyhow, the Pegasus cluster, which is your little replacement for M13 in the fall. It's a pretty little cluster and fairly easy to find as well. Saturn's back, though you have to get up at a god-awful hour of the morning or else stay up all night, which I'm finding harder and harder to do as senility is approaching. Saturn, actually, the rings are starting to get to a nice angle again, and should be a good deal of fun. It's very easy to find in the morning. And here's a fun thing that's coming up middle of the month is two of the fainter satellites that you can typically make out with small telescopes are coming into a region of their orbit at a sensible time when you can really watch those things just truck along the sky. So here we are at 20-minute intervals. I'll back that up again. Or I'll try to back it up again. There we go. So these are really going to be moving. So that's going to be a nice little treat for observing. And these are fairly dim, so when you're seeing little dim things moving, it's a lot easier to recognize that you found them. So again, this should be fun. So if it's not cloudy, this should be a fun thing to do in the morning. Unfortunately, there's this wretched go to work in the morning thing, but oh well, maybe you can get up early or something. Mars is back as well. It's pretty small. Now you might remember Rolf Mayer did a nice little bit on observing Mars, so I won't try to duplicate that. But again, that's up and fairly recognizable as well. Here it is at the beginning of the month, and we have its path. Yeah, that's right. It's as large as the full moon. That's right, and it's not even the end of August. Yeah, so this is where the hoax started first, folks. It's actually, as you can see, it's really trucking along the sky. There's the local path for the next month or so. So this is really moving, zipping along quite a lot. But it'll be up at a nice height and a nice thing to observe. Though, as usual with Mars, it's going to be a tricky little devil. That's what it'll be like by the end of the month. So, compared to the first one, ye gods, man. I can just see the myths I'm starting out of this one. There we go. Appears from all reports, and Pierre Martin, who you may have noticed, his fantastic meteor photograph hit Sky and Telescope for this month. Yeah. I don't know where he is. He's probably hiding. But so it seems like this month's Leonids might actually, it's not going to be a repeat of 2001, but it could be a nice little event. So now, the radiant's there, but don't forget you're not necessarily going to look at the radiant. You want to look a little bit away from the radiant and up. You're often going to find some nice stuff around here. So you know the routine. Fortunately, this year there actually isn't a moon handy, so you've actually got a fighting chance at this one. Jupiter in the daytime. I've only done it a couple of times, and it's always been easier with the moon. So towards the end of the month, we have a nice crack at catching Jupiter in the daytime. It'll be easiest at dusk, but you might actually be able to find it over the day as well, particularly with binoculars. And there you go. There's that simulation. So if you were above the clouds, which will inevitably be there, this is what you'll be able to see. And that is very nearly it. So
Thank you, Terry.
that's it for me. On to the rest.
All right, now people get to tell us about the wonderful things they've been observing. We're going to have 6 observers on stage in quick succession, so please get ready. First is Murray Campbell.
May I have your attention, please? Yes. This is not something of the moon. Yes, I did it. Normally, folks, I usually just stare at the moon, but a few months back, this young gentleman here posted a challenge, and that was to find these dark spots called Bernard's Nebula, 142 and 143, in Ottawa. While I was studying the Ophüls area and that, I just looked straight up, kept on going in a windy part of my forest, and eventually I came across Gamma. And from Gamma, using a 32 millimeter puzzle with my 4-inch newt, I was able to detect something that looked similar to an obscure, messy object. And then from that, what was it, laser dot or thing?
Laser dot.
Laser dot. Okay, from that, I picked out a dark zone that etched its way between these brilliant star fields to the left and to the right. And then from there, I was able to pick out this one being 143. And that is what you can do with a very cheap 4-inch scope, which since then I've had repaired. So, okay, next one. Okay, now the moon. This object is Terminator found on the 28th of September. We actually had dark sky then, unbelievable. Terminator on the 28th, just past half. I was fascinated by the Highlands area, the ridge between Cabus out here and Mauritius. I can't pronounce it properly, but right above it, you can actually see highlighting all the craters above the horizon, and the Terminator being this point going on there. And I was fascinated again by the series, not that it's very well done, of craters and craters that seem piled on top of each other and illuminated and stood above the terminal line. And that is what I drew out there. And it looked like it was about 100 miles high. It was just gorgeous. So that's, again, with the 4-inch Newtonian, and I used a 9 millimeter and a 25 millimeter puzzle again to find out these features as well. So that was a really thrilling night to be able to see that. I have another moon. Yeah, this, believe it or not, on the 25th, 3 days, on a quarter moon, again, the Terminator being across there, north, south, being upside down. This field is what I was drawing. I was fascinated in it. It formed 3 craters with Halliday being over here, Faraday. But this feature in here appeared to me as a horn of a saddle sticking above the grouping, and it formed which formed these outer parts of the crater series. And to me, it looked like a heart shape or a broken heart shape. You can almost see part of it coming out here. And that really fascinated me. And of course, our wonderful feature of the typical crater gave it off some more detail. But again, this edging of the craters rose above the Terminator and gave back illuminations to the features behind it. And I spent a good 15 minutes doing that. So you don't have much time with something that moves. And one more. Okay, this is Bob Olson's challenge, was to find M52 and a whole bunch of other stuff. It took me 4 days to, where's my dot? I blew it. Okay, anyways, four different features on this particular field. One was to find the pesky little items. Oh, there we go. So once you found M52, which took me a while to do because my scope was almost at zenith all the time, and I was able to pick out this star field that had a dark feature through it. And this, believe it or not, was the primary object I was looking for, and can't see it. The other object was out here. So I got pretty well half of what the targets were for that day. And that was without filters. So I was not able to see any of the nebula that came off here or out of here. But that was okay. Again, I used a 32 millimeter puzzle again, and then closed up on a 9 millimeter, again without filters. So that's not too bad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Being able to sketch is quite a skill, quite impressive. Thank you. Next observer is Paul Commission. Does Paul likes to speak from his seat in the audience?
That's all right, I'll stand up today, since I got notes here to read. This is NGC 128. This is in Pisces. It's a group of galaxies. I'm interested in, thank you. You can put it up higher now. There, can you hear me now? This is a group of galaxies in Pisces. I'm interested in these things like the Hickson groups and the all these other things, the ARP and all that. And this thing is quite, in fact, this is, it's not a challenge object, but it's quite easy for you to see that. That particular galaxy, I think, is about 12.8, the main galaxy, 128. And this is easily located, so it's 2.7 by 0.8, so it's easily seen. And you see the other ones there. I don't want to start naming them. There's about 4 or 5 of them in there. So I took this the other day, and I thought that's an interesting type of object to see. So this is, you notice it's sort of a box, a square there. It's not the usual. It's not your usual. It's what they call irregular galaxy. Okay.
Thank you, Paul. Next is Rolf Beer.
Well, I guess this is it. This is about all we could observe last month. So this lasted about a minute before the sun went behind clouds again and it started raining again. So that's it.
Thank you, Rolf. Next is Paul Cloninger.
Go around. We're gonna have an accident here.
Hi everybody, just a couple of images for tonight. This is NGC 891. It's an edge-on spiral galaxy, probably very similar to our own Milky Way, located about 30 million light years from here up in the constellation of Andromeda. It's an object that's fairly bright. It's about an 11th magnitude galaxy. I think it's 10.8, and even with a small to moderate sized telescope, you can see this as an elongated smudge. If you've got a bigger scope, you can actually see the dust laying through there. This is what did I do with this one? This is 18.5 minute exposure on a 6-inch Newtonian reflector. Next one, please. This is the Dumbbell Nebula. I've seen it. I know you've seen it all before there, but interesting nebula. About 1,400 light years from here. Sort of a vision of what's going to happen to our own sun in the distant future. Dying star here in the center basically sloughs off its outer atmosphere, and which expands over time. This nebula is about a light year and a half across, and recent estimates for its age put it at somewhere between 10 and 15,000 years. So it's actually a relatively recent event that's happened. And a couple of interesting things about that central star. That white dwarf at the center is actually the largest such white dwarf that we currently know of. It has a diameter of about 1/20th that of the Sun and a mass about half that of the Sun. And by the way, M27 was also the first planetary nebula object discovered, and that was by Charles Messier in 1764. And that's a 16.5-minute exposure on a 7.5-inch Maksutov Newtonian astrograph. That's all I got for you.
Cool, thank you. Next is Bob Olson.
This is M52, one of the challenge objects. I apologize. This is my planetary nebula that you were to try and find as the challenge object. And this is the picture I took, and I basically had no idea where it was. It's like there's a lot of things in there. So what I did was I went to Starry Night, and I pasted over top of it the Starry Night image with the where the planetary was, and I matched up the star fields. About a quarter of the stars are actually in Starry Night that you see here, and that's where it is there. It's at KJPN 8. And so it's still pretty small. The circle, by the way, is not the planetary nebula. It's the Starry Night symbol for a planetary nebula. So I zoomed in a little bit on the same image. And the planetary nebula is about the same size as that green circle, if I can believe the Hubble photograph of it. And then I just put 2 lines on it, so when I take the circle away, you'll see what it looks like. There. Which, to put it mildly, was really irritating. Because I had a lot invested in this image. But not just to save the day here, you'll notice that red spot off to the left. There's a carbon star. Yeah, and carbon stars are when you take a helium and you jam it to a helium and make a beryllium. And it's a beryllium-8, which has a lifespan of basically 0. And then you jam onto that another helium, and it becomes carbon. And this is very difficult to happen because the beryllium lasts such a short period of time. And so it's unusual that you get carbon out of that triple helium mixture. And then actually the carbon then gets a helium jammed onto it, and it becomes oxygen. And in most stars, there's more oxygen than there is carbon. And so the carbon then becomes carbon monoxide, and it doesn't bother us. But when there's more carbon than oxygen, you get soot, graphite sort of, and it clogs up the atmosphere. And apparently it's not very easy to get spectral analysis off these stars because their atmosphere is so clouded up with carbon. This is more appropriate than you'd imagine because this is a red giant, and about every 10 to 100,000 years, the helium engine goes into high gear and produces all kinds of heat, and you get this big explosion, and then it settles back down to hydrogen burning again, and then goes to helium and back and forth until a lot of the stars blasted away into planetary nebula, which is supposed to be where those arrows are. So it'll eventually turn into something that I can take a photograph of. All right. This is M52, sorry. This is the challenge object. This is what Attila calls a boring open cluster. The sky is filled with them. Okay. This is NGC 891, and Paul told you all about it, so I hope you were paying attention. You'll notice the color of it. It's kind of unusual, kind of a, well, I don't know, brownie color. It's not like a normal galaxy where you end up with sort of a blue color with maybe younger stars or maybe less dust in the picture. I don't know. When I take pictures, though, typically what I do is I find a star and make it white, and I find the background, which I hope is gray, dark gray, and then whatever falls in the middle is whatever color it is. And so I ended up with this picture here, which looks odd, until I went and looked at other people's astrophotos, and it seems to be the real color. Okay, this is NGC 7331 again, and this is a really interesting galaxy. It was considered to be a kind of a example of what the Milky Way, our galaxy, looked like. until they studied it more carefully and found out the central core is rotating in the opposite direction as to the arms, which was a little bit hard to explain. I don't think they have explained it very well yet. They think it might be stuff from outside coming in, crashing into it. They're not totally sure. And there's a whole bunch of galaxies in the picture. I hope you can see all the little tiny galaxies. And this is a laser pointer, right? Let me see here. Over here somewhere is Stephan's quintets, sorry. So several times I've tried to see Stephan's quintet and had basically no luck. It's pretty faint. Okay, and there's some of the galaxies. There's actually some more down here in the bottom left-hand corner. And Chris told me I had to memorize all these names, and I don't memorize numbers very well. So he apparently kindly put the numbers on for me. And this was the other challenge object, was the bubble 7635. There's a star that sort of got a shock front knocking out the gas into this really, really interesting bubble. And oh yeah, Deborah's in the audience today, so this is actually an appropriate full slide. I showed this picture last month, and I mentioned that when I do images, I typically do red, green, and blue, and then I mix them together in the colors. But this time I did something a little differently. I used hydrogen alpha, which is it's a dark red hydrogen alpha, very narrow width color. And I used that for my luminance because it brings out the shape of the color of the nebula better, the patterns in it. But the trouble is, if you're not careful how you do this, you end up with a salmon pink kind of color. And so I showed this picture and got accosted by Deborah at halftime at the intermission, and she explained to me how I was supposed to do this. And it involves using the red and the hydrogen alpha together. And so I redid the image. And as you can see, the color, can this thing go backwards? Yes. It's quite different. That is probably the color that it's closest to. You'll notice also the blue rings around all the stars. That's because I didn't get my blue focused quite right. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Awesome photographs. Right. That's stuff people have done. Now we have a few challenges to recite into doing more observing. First, we have a Deep Sky Challenge by Paul, who will again speak from his position in the audience.
I'm going to turn around here to the people. Folks, I apologize to you and to Attila. That challenge object that I gave you, the Einstein cross, I just couldn't get it. So I outsmarted myself. This happens in life, you know, and you can't. So this time, I'm giving you an object that is much easier. This is a little group of galaxies in Pegasus, the 17771 and 7769. The 7771 is 13th magnitude. NGC 7769 is 12th magnitude. This, I think you'll be able to get quite easily with, say, a 10-inch telescope or so. So I'm not going to play any more games.
Thank you, Paul. Next, we have a lunar observing challenge from our favorite lunatic, Ryan Paul. We could have more than one lunatic, which is why he's the favorite.
That's good, that's good.
Oh, well, Murray's very close now.
All right. The Royal Astronomical Society of Canada has something called the Isabel Williamson Lunar Observing Program. And the number 134 of the program is to observe the area around the crater Grimaldi, which is basically the darkest feature that you can see on the moon. And it looks very elongated here, but if you were to fly your spacecraft around that limb of the moon, of course, it's a nice, pretty much a circular crater. And how's this for a great moon puzzle? All right, we'll go to the next one, please, Chris. All right, using Doug Loma's fine photograph here, and we can see that we've got the Sea of Rains here, Mare Imbrium, and Oceanus Procellarum right here. That's the the great western ocean of the moon. And just off the edge of that is where we see the crater Grimaldi. Okay? All right, we'll go to the next one, please. All right, now I wanted to put this one because part of the observing program challenge in that is to observe the crater itself, but also to observe a system of rills. So these trenches, basically lava trenches, where lava, when the moon was molten inside, bubbled up and would flood up some of these craters. And the reason it's so dark is it's all volcanic material, basalt that's bubbled up from the interior. But I found this great image from I don't even know what that is. But there's a nice representation of where all these rills, these trenches are that are associated with the Grimaldi crater. Now there's some other features that I wanted to add to this, just to add to our own challenge. Chris, if you would mind, please. All right. So here's a sketch that I did back in, I can't read backwards very well, sometime, 2002, I think is what it was. Right, so we've got the crater, and I found an image more or less similar to it. So here we have the crater Grimaldi, 230 kilometers in diameter, and if we go up, there's Lorman is right here, Hevelius, and Cavalierius right up here. And I actually, when I did this, I misidentified the crater E is right here. And I forgot to, I put Lorman here. I just started moving things one step along. So it was a worthwhile exercise for me to put this together because I found out I had labeled my sketch incorrectly. Now what's very interesting about this is, especially when you have the terminator, the day-night line, right along the edge, the western edge here, you get all of this in very nice relief. But what it also does is, if you look at the crater Hevelius, right here, notice there's shadow on this side. There's also shadow on that side. What does that tell you about the floor of the crater? It's got a hump in it. All right, so we're getting the shadow from the crater wall here, and we're also getting shadow from the raised floor, the humping floor of the crater right there. So that's well worth looking out for. And one more. All right. So this was just a quickie sketch that I had done one night. I was looking around the area of Grimaldi, and the Ocean of Storms right over here. If you look down to the southwest, you'll see there's a line of craters, actually quite dark craters. Kruger is almost as dark, 46 kilometers here, almost as dark as Grimaldi. It doesn't show it here, but I was just doing a fast sketch because what I wanted to just to sketch in quickly was there's a line of mountains along here, known as the Cordillera Mountains, or Montes Cordillera, and it's a 900-kilometer ring of mountains. And what it is, it's the outer ring. If you drove your spacecraft around the western edge of the moon there, you would be right on top of the Eastern Sea Mare Orientale. And the Cordillera Mountains are the outer ring of that multiple ring impact structure. And if you're really lucky, if you have a nice libration of the moon, a western libration of the moon, which means the western limb, as the moon goes around the Earth, it's constantly towing and being tugged by the Earth. And sometimes we get different limbs of the Earth rocked toward us, either north and south or east and west. And if you get a favorable libration, as they call it, you can see the next line of mountains that would be beyond here. But inside here is another, what they call a lake, and it's the Autumn Lake. So we have a Summer Lake and Autumn Lake right here, and the next line of mountains that's inside here is the Rook Mountains, and that's the next line in of the impact structure of the Oriental Basin. So if you can, I didn't have a really great libration there. I've seen the Rook Mountains before, but it's really tough because it's so far around the limb. And I think that's probably it, eh? There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. By the way, beautiful images from the members. I'm going to be coming after each and every one of you because for the next issue of Astronauts and into the new year. Doing some great work. And Bob, it's not how it should be. It was just a suggestion, but you did a fantastic job with that, by the way. My husband Peter Cerevolo and I, we often go on imaging trips to Arizona because we like to. This is what we like to do, but it's also because of work. And Peter builds telescopes and tests them, and he has no interest whatsoever in processing the images, so I go and do that. But Arizona even though you think it's a desert, it's not, it's just arid. Often we get clouded out. And it's an expensive thing to do, to go on these trips. So we decided to go to Chile this time because we heard a lot about it. We know people that have been there, and the conditions are incredible. The desert, the Atacama Desert, has been a desert for something like 20 million years. And there are some rain stations there that have never recorded rain ever, as long as humans have had rain stations out there. And so it's clear, and we were there for 3 weeks in August, and it was clear the whole 3 weeks. We'd wake up in the morning, or in the afternoon actually, and we'd say, "I wonder what it's going to be like today." And we said, "Well, it's just like it was yesterday and then tomorrow." And so it was kind of fun that way. So advance to the right. I don't have this upside down, do I?
The right button, yeah.
Good. Okay, so Chile. Most of you probably know where it is, but one thing I was actually surprised, never really thought about it before, but it was in exactly the same time zone as we are here. It's actually in Atlantic time. So if you look at, we traveled down, almost straight down, but first we went to Toronto, and that took 4 hours, because it should have taken 40 minutes, but you remember last summer, the thunderstorms every day, and it was just especially July was really horrible. And the thunderstorms kept us from taking off, so we basically sat in that aircraft for a couple of hours before we took off. And then when we got to Toronto, we couldn't land. And then when we landed, we couldn't find a spot to park, and it was a mess. So I'll just show you a little bit about Chile here. Chile is this long, skinny country down there, way down, minus 33 or 33 degrees south. So you can imagine it would be quite a different sky than what we see here. So Chile, up in here in the northern part, about 1,000 kilometers, is the Atacama Desert, and that's where we were headed. But we took off from Toronto, went down to Santiago, which I think is there. I can't see it from here. We overshot our destination because Santiago is really the only city that you can fly into. Nice city too. Polluted though, and not great seeing, great skies. So then we took another 2-hour flight up to Calama, and Peter kept singing about llamas and calamas the whole time we were there because it rhymed. It was fun. And there are llamas there. They have, in the deserts, they have the nomads that travel across the desert with llamas, and we saw that a few times. And then when we got to Calama, we had to travel another 2 hours down to San Pedro de Atacama. And the desert, this desert made Arizona look lush. When we got there, we had to get used to the climate. We had problems with nosebleeds and cracked lips in our skin. You don't need a hairdryer. You go outside and you're dry in about 2 minutes. And it's nothing like it, nothing in the world like it, and it is the driest place on the earth. There are no insects, there are no plants, there are no animals, no birds, at least in the deep part of the desert. I'll show you some pictures later on that I swear to God I was on the moon. It looked just like the moon. Next. Okay, so getting there, I said it took 4 hours to get to Toronto, and that was kind of onerous. We made our connection, which was dicey for a while, but the telescope did not make the connection. It took 3 more days to get there, and that was a bit of a drag because we had timed it with the moon and everything. But it all worked out. And this is flying. We were flying into Calama here. Now, Calama actually has the largest copper mine in the entire world, and it's the moon. It's on the moon, I swear to God. The accommodations were really nice. There's a fellow called, his name is Alain Maury, and he's a Frenchman, and he's an astronomer. He used to be a professional astronomer, but what he does for a living is he hosts other people's telescopes and domes there, and he has lodges, and every night he gives tours of the night sky, and he's really enjoys it, and he has a lot of fun with it. But the place was nice. I mean, we had a nice patio here, and we could sit on this patio every day and get a bit of sun. And looking straight out, we'd be looking right at this volcano. Amazing view. That here I am image processing because, you know, that's all I did when I was there. Dust devils during the day were amazing. Wow, dusty place. But they would kick up and they're like little tornadoes that would go all over the place during the daytime. Here's the kitchen area. Most of our gear is on the table, of course. And there's Peter having some fun with a flambe here. There's nowhere to eat there. You have to go into San Pedro to a restaurant. So we would go into Calama and buy groceries, and then we just cook for ourselves here, and usually have dinner about 2 o'clock in the morning, because we'd work all night, go to sleep when the sun comes up, and get up, sleep as long as we could, and do it all again. And we did that for 3 weeks. It was really fun. Now the setup, luckily we didn't have to take more than just the telescope. Steve Barnes loaned us his setup here, which is his sky shed, and he had a Paramount, which was really great. And here's our instrument, the Ceravolo 300 that we set up. And this is Alain Maury. He's the owner of the place, and then there's Peter. Every once in a while, though, we would go into San Pedro with some friends and go just to look around it looks like a third world there, but the restaurants were first class. They were like first world restaurants. This was a restaurant here. I mean, it doesn't look like much, right, when you walk inside. It still doesn't look like much, but the food is amazing. Often they have power outages in the entire city, and they don't even bat an eyelash. They just bring out the candles and they keep cooking, and it's just par for the course. And this is rush hour. And this is Alain's his office in San Pedro, where people will come in and sign up for the night tours and get the bus and come into the area where we were every night. Now, remember I mentioned how it looked like the moon? Doesn't that look like the moon? I mean, really. I mean, if there's no plants, there's no animals, there's no insects, there's no water in the air, but it has a blue sky. If the moon had an atmosphere, it would look like that. That's somewhere between Calama and our location near San Pedro. One day we went on a photographic excursions with some friends that we met that were from Italy, and there are a lot of volcanoes all over the place there. And at the base of all those volcanoes, whoops, I went back. At the base of all those volcanoes are lagoons, and that's considered an oasis in the desert. It was the lagoons. That day, it was about 0 degrees. It's pretty cold. You've got to remember, in August it was winter. It's winter there, but nice winter compared to here, don't you think? There's no snow on the ground. Yeah. So, we were at about 14,000 feet there. I was beginning to have a little difficulty breathing.
What's the latitude?
It's 33 degrees south. Nice volcanoes. Some of them are active, not these ones, but there are some active volcanoes there. Now, when I mentioned that we sit on the patio and we look out and we can see this across the way. I mean, you can see a long distance. It's the ALMA Observatory, the Atacama Large Millimeter and Submillimeter Array. It's in construction right now, and they're going to be putting up something like 80 of these things. And they're going to be imaging the sky at submillimeter radio waves, short-wave radio waves, shorter than any other radio waves. And they're going to be something like 10 times the resolution of Hubble once it gets going. And we actually encountered a half a dish going down the road. And they go up here, and it's 16,500 feet. I don't know how they breathe, but apparently the people, they take cocoa leaves and they make a tea out of it, and it increases the white blood cells or something like that. I don't know. Anyways, I think this machine here actually is pressurized with oxygen for the workers. I mean, come on, 16,500 feet. It's something like 2,500 feet taller than Mauna Kea. Imagine. So we're going to see some really interesting stuff coming out of this fairly soon. And it's a collaboration of many different countries, including Canada. And Jim Hesser, our national RESC honorary president, he goes down there twice a year to check up on it because he works for the NRC and the HIA, Hertzberg Institute of Astrophysics. And he was telling me that he really looks forward to those trips because he loves it too. But the reason for going, of course, is the sky. This is just a quick DSLR shot I took from near the sky shed. And this is Jupiter rising. Now, imagine the moon rising here. It's upside down. It's completely upside down. I mean, yeah, it makes sense, right? But seeing it is weird. But not only that, normally when things rise here, right, we expect it to go this way. They go this way. So everything goes, and in the daytime when we're traveling around, I'm thinking, I usually use the sun or shadow or whatever to see where from going west and east, and I got really mixed up. And,
Use those cocoa leaves.
yeah, I didn't have any. So everything rose to the left, and all the planets and the constellations and everything. It was just very, very strange. I felt like I was on a different planet. So I'm going to show you a few images that we took, and then, well, this is all I have. It's just the images left here. This is a lagoon, of course, M8, and it's in the constellation Sagittarius, right? One of the things that wasn't great about going to Chile was you think all you need is clear skies, but that's not necessarily true when you're doing imaging. You want good seeing. And what that means is that you want the air to be still. So when those stars hit the CCD chip, they're not bouncing around and getting blurred out and look like blobby stars. This is a really wide field image. This is like a almost a 1.5 degree image here. So it doesn't really matter that much. We didn't do any high resolution or much high resolution because the seeing wasn't good. It was actually quite bad because we were in a valley surrounded by volcanoes, and that was causing the air to be turbulent and convective, and it was making the stars twinkle. You can look up, and they were actually twinkling stars. You would think it would be very still, and it is in other places in the desert and other places in Chile, but there, it just wasn't good. Maybe it was the time of year. We'd like to go back and try it again, just to see. So this is an LRGB. It's got some hydrogen alpha, got narrowband images in there, like Bob talked about. I usually don't like narrowband images per se, like false color stuff. I like to blend it into my color. Like hydrogen alpha, I like to blend into the red because it is red. And oxygen, I like to blend into the green and blue because they are part green and blue. It's a very natural looking image here. Anybody know what this one is? M7, in the middle of the Milky Way. That was like, look at those stars. Have you ever seen so many stars? The M7. So what we did was we didn't really go for the southern stuff. We went for the stuff that was in the zenith because the seeing is better in the zenith than it is if you're looking out anywhere else. So Peter concentrated on the acquisition of the images more overhead, and it's stuff that you see here, but not everything. I'll show you some stuff that we took when, this is the Helix, Aquarius, I think. Helix is one of the brightest planetary, it looks like the eye, don't you think? I like that one. Omega Centauri, yes, you cannot see this one from here. This is one of the largest and the brightest globular clusters that's orbiting the Milky Way. Lots of blue stars in there, lots of active blue stars and yellow. Now this is something you don't see here. Does anybody know it? Tarantula. And that looks like a tarantula, don't you think? I mean, I call it the quagmire. It's really wild. There's a lot going on in this thing, and it's huge. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. When I stepped outside, for the first time, everyone told me the Magellanic Clouds are really big, really amazing. But I was really shocked at how big they were. You don't see anything like that up here. And the large one, which the tarantula is in, was just huge. And I wish I was into doing DSLR wide field stuff, because then I would have taken a big shot of the area with the Magellanic Clouds there. So that's a tarantula there. All these little things here are actually supernova remnants, all those round things. And I've heard that if this whole thing was as far away from us as the Orion Nebula, you would see it in the daytime, and it would take up a quarter of the sky. It's absolutely huge. This is a nice one. I think it's the Corona Australis complex in Dorado, which is a constellation we don't see. NGC 6723 cluster. And this is a reflection nebula in the dust clouds, and it's called the Beauty and the Beast, I've heard. And there's a variable star in there. It's like a T Tauri star, a brand new star that's actually causing this nebula to be variable. Believe it or not, this is a variable nebula, which is kind of weird. M20, Mission Nebula, and a reflection nebula. And the final one here is NGC 253. This is one of the few high-resolution F9 images that we took because we had to do something, and it turned out not too bad. And I like this one because it's got this dust that surrounds it. It's pretty cool. And that's about it. Thanks for listening.
Awesome images, Heather.
Sorry?
Awesome images.
Thank you.
Okay. Volunteer organizations such as ours exist because of the hard work and dedication of its members. Even in my own relatively short time with the RESC, it has been nothing short of remarkable to me how so many of us show almost or as much commitment and enthusiasm to the society itself as we do to the night sky we all love. One of the privileges each center in the RESC holds is the ability to nominate for special recognition those of us who go that extra bit further to make our organization what it is. This past year, the Ottawa Centre put forward such a nomination to the national office for one of our longtime members. I am pleased to announce that this nomination was accepted by National, and the award was made available at the recent General Assembly in Saskatchewan. Since this individual was not able to attend the GA himself, one of our other members was kind enough to arrange for the award to be sent here. So without further ado, it is my pleasure on behalf of the Ottawa Centre RESC to welcome to the stage our own Mr. Al Seaman. Okay, just a quick few words. Al Seaman has shown superior dedication in his volunteer duties with the Ottawa Centre RESC. Indeed, it is difficult to think of a project that the RESC Ottawa Centre has done in the past few years that Al has not been a part of. Al has served as director of our Fred Lossing Observatory for many years, has been a key member of the SmartScope team, helped pioneer the creation of our centre website, helped manage our membership and mailing lists on the internal side, and has been a very frequent traveler to RESC General Assemblies. Al's meticulous attention to detail assisted in the creation and management of our website, a first-class information tool that is used both within and outside the Ottawa astronomical community. Al's consistent dedication of his time and efforts in managing our centre assets has kept us in good form, both for today and into the future. Al, for your continued presence as a driving force in the Ottawa Centre RESC, you are undoubtedly a deserving candidate for the Service Award, and I am proud to present this award here tonight to you.
Well, I knew this was in the offing back in the summer when I was invited to the GA. Unfortunately, things didn't work out this summer. I didn't make it. But nonetheless, I'm still very pleased that the center has seen fit to recognize some of the things I've done. In point of fact, most of it really wasn't work. It was fun. I was having a great time doing all these nice things. Unfortunately, my circumstances have changed in the past year, and I'm just forced to drop out, at least for the time being. I will always think fondly of many of the things that go on in this club. I really enjoy meeting many of the people, and It's a great team, a great club. I do wish you the best. Carry on and keep it going. Thank you.
This club does good things because of the dedication, like volunteers like Al. We have many volunteers, and it's a terribly important job to make sure that we have a sufficient supply of volunteers, and that's Chuck Dale's job.
Okay, I've been allowed 3 minutes. Here we go. So as your past president, I've been tasked to form a nominating committee, and for the record, the committee consists of John Buchanan, Eric Kujala, and myself. Each year prior to the annual meeting of the Ottawa Centre, a slate of candidates for the various elected positions of council must be presented. The Centre's bylaws describes the procedures by which nominations are to be submitted by Centre members for any and all of the offices. In addition, a nominating committee appointed by council is tasked with identifying one or more candidates for each elected position. I mentioned who this council is. Nominations by this committee is not to be construed as an official endorsement of these individuals, but is simply to ensure that there are no vacancies on council in the event of a lack of nominations by members. So for the record, these are the positions. And we notice we have one open position. Nominations will be open for anybody that wants to take on this position. I am currently a National Council representative but cannot nominate myself for re-election. I am willing to serve, but on the concern that if anybody else wants this position, please come forward, see Chris Tarrant, and we can fill that position. All of these people have consented to have their names stand. Elections will be required only for those positions for which nominations have been received from the membership at large. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks. Well, thanks, Attila. Hi, everyone. So, one of the thing that I enjoy the most about our hobby is going to dark skies. And I've been doing that for the past few years with my dog and doing a lot of visual observations. But over the past year, I've gotten into imaging. And so the challenge for me has been how to take my astrophotography gear to dark skies. And because I just find being under dark skies to be a lot of fun, regardless of what I'm doing. And all of my observing is in and around Ottawa, so up to about 3 hours drive from Ottawa. So I travel a lot, as much as I can, I try to go about 3 or 4 times a month. So every clear night I get during the dark phase of the moon. Of course, the last 6 weeks have been pretty awful for that. So I've had 0 opportunities in the last 6 weeks. But I did get a lot of good chances in August and September. So I'm going to show you some images from that time. So the challenge, of course, with astrophotography is that your equipment is so much more complex than for visual observation. So what I'm going to focus on today is sort of how to manage that and how at least what's worked for me. So I'll give some thoughts on that, but just bear in mind that I still consider myself very much a beginner at imaging, so take it with a grain of salt. So shooting under dark skies, well, why would you do that? And what I'm going to focus on is going to dark skies versus trying to build an observatory in a more light polluted environment. So one thing that you get right off the bat is you get better signal to noise ratio. So you can, with the same equipment, with the same amount of exposure time, you're going to go much deeper. Or put another way, you're going to need a lot less exposure time to get good data. That also means that there's going to be less processing because you're going to spend less time trying to get rid of sky glow. You also get more natural looking images. You can also image down to the horizon very easily. And most places that I go to, like if I go to pristine skies, if you go 2 hours west towards Nirvana, which is just north of Barnacle Provincial Park, there are no light domes at all. Another place that I like to go to is La Vérendrye Forest Reserve, which is 3 hours north of here. It's in Quebec, and it's all, in both those spots have abandoned airstrips. So the horizons are very good, and there's no light domes. Which also means you won't get any gradients in your sky background, which again means you spend less time processing. Because every time you do processing on an image to get rid of things like sky glow, you're going to actually get rid of some of the important signal as well. And of course, dark skies are a treat, whether you're just imaging or standing. And the best reason, of course, is that steak tastes best under Mach 7 skies. That's actually true. Now, what is for the house about going about taking your gear to dark skies? My first rule is, well, it's all about portability, so keep it simple. So the equipment needs to be mechanically sound, but not heavy. And the first part is really more important than the second, because if your equipment is not mechanically sound, if there's any sort of looseness or play in your gear, you can pull all your hair out before you get a decent image. The other thing is to minimize cables and minimize view strips. And I'll show you some what I do. And then, of course, know all your components and their weaknesses. And that's a very big thing, is to know the weaknesses of each thing and know what can go wrong. It helps to start with a very short focal lengths. And what I'm going to show you tonight are some images from 15 millimeters, which is ultra wide, to 480 millimeters. So at 480 millimeters, you're still talking about pretty low resolution imaging. And most people consider that to be a very wide field, even at 480. But what I've found is that, if you look at it as a photographer, it's best not to think about objects and rather think about pieces of sky. So what portrait are we trying to create? What I found is that it is possible to shoot over 1,000 millimeters in a portable setup, but it's a bit more tricky because, of course, it taxes your mount, because things like guiding and getting clean star images becomes a bit more tricky and more difficult. Okay, and the last thing I'd say is that practice, 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 and I'll show you what I do. Now, I found that repetition is the key to success, and personally, I find it's better to be consistent than to be lucky. And what I mean by that is, if you're consistently getting crappy results, you can just correct what you're doing and try something different. And if you're consistently getting good results, then you don't change anything. But if you're kind of in between, and one night you're shooting really great, another night you're shooting pretty crappy, you really don't know what's going on, and you're kind of stuck. So better to be consistent than to be lucky. So here's my first image that I'm going to show you. This is the first few images I'm going to show you are with my DSLR. It's a daytime camera that I use to shoot pictures of my kids. And this shot I did at La Vérendrye, the site I told you about 3 hours north of here, in September. And this is the Milky Way. This is with a 15 millimeter Canon fisheye lens. What we see here is Jupiter. So this is looking south. And you can see what the fisheye does is it gives you a field about 90 degrees across. So this is about, if you think of the horizon being 360, this is about a quarter of the horizon we're looking at across here. And you can see a bit of distortion here because the lens actually, it curves the field at the edges. And the trick here with this kind of shot is at 15 millimeters, your star images are very, very small. So it's hard to get focus and know if you're in focus. And you have to just focus your lens manually. But the nice thing about the star images being so small is that you don't need to do any auto guiding or guiding. You can just use the tracking on your mount. So going a little bit closer in, this is at 24 millimeters. This is with a zoom lens, set at 24. And the previous shot I showed you is a 6-minute exposure at ISO 800. This one is 2 8-minute exposures, and it's also at ISO 800. Now, what we're looking at here is also at La Vérendrye. This is the Milky Way looking into Cassiopeia, and you can almost make out the W here of Cassiopeia. It's kind of drowned out by the other stars. And over here, we can see the double cluster, and there's the Andromeda Galaxy. This field is about 50 degrees across. So at 24 millimeters, that's the kind of portrait that you can get. And again, this is pretty close to the horizon. You can see some trees down here. One thing I'll say about zoom lenses is that they can actually produce pretty tight star images if you stop them down a little bit. This Canon lens is It's a f2.8 lens, but I stopped it down to f4 for this image. So at f4, it's pretty sharp across the full field. Although this camera is, the 40D is what they call a crop factor camera. So the chip in this camera is not a 35 millimeter chip. It's about 22 millimeters across. So it actually is more forgiving of lenses to use a camera that doesn't have a full frame. This is at 135 millimeters. So again, zooming in a bit closer. And this is with a zoom lens again, that's a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. And this is also at Leverandry. It's a 6-minute exposure. And my camera is not filter modified, although I've sent it for modification. But this, when I took this shot, it was with an unmodified camera. So you can see there's not a lot of red response here. This is, of course, the belt of Orion and the sword of Orion. And you can make out a little bit here the Flame Nebula. And if you look really hard, you can see the horse heads over there, too. And up here, you can see the Running Man. But this is, again, just 6 minutes. And I wanted to give you a sense of how wide this field is. This is about 9 degrees by 6 degrees. And this lens was set at f5 for this shot. It's an f4 lens at 135 millimeter. Now this is at 200 millimeter. So this is the same lens as the previous one. And I shot this in August. This is looking at Sagittarius. And you can see the lagoon there, M8, and this is M20, the Trifid. And this was 4 8-minute images stacked, so it's about 32 minutes altogether. Again, this is just setting at the time. It was very close to the horizon, and this is just about an hour to the west of us, Neon Prior. Okay, this was now this is the first image that I'm showing you with a telescope. The others were all with lenses. The Andromeda Galaxy. This is with my Teleview 85 millimeter refractor. So this is a 3.5-inch scope. And again, this is with my DSLR. This was done at Leverandry, and it's about 48 minutes of exposures. Thanks. So this, I want to show you this. This is about 2.5 degrees across this field, right? So I'm just going to quickly go back here for a second. See that's the same camera. We're looking at a 50-degree field here. And then in this image, the diagonal here is about 3 degrees. So it's just a different portrait of a part of the sky. Okay, so this is kind of where I started off. This is my backyard, and I thought about, first of all, I have a south-facing backyard, and what I did was this shed is now facing my back fence. Okay, so what I did was I got both my neighbors to come over, and with these Home Depot dollies, lifted the shed up, because it's not tied to the base, it's not fixed to the base, and turned it around so it's facing the back fence. And then I put this little pad here, okay? And the idea was I needed some place to practice, so when I got my gear, I didn't actually get my gear till, my imaging gear all put together till Christmas, about a day before Christmas is when it all came. So by the time I actually got to practice, it looked like this. So what I did was, and I said repetition is the key to success, is I for a couple of months, I just shot M42 repeatedly and figured out sort of what are all the quirks in my stuff, especially with guiding. And then this August, a couple of months ago, I expanded my little pad there. So again, now I think this winter I'll have an easier time clearing the snow. But this is what typically my setup looks like. So that's my 85 millimeter refractor. And in this case, I've got my ST10, because I have a CCD camera as well. And the previous shots I showed you, I had my Canon DSLR here. This little scope here is a William Optics 66 millimeter refractor, and I actually borrowed this from Joe Silverman, because I didn't have a guiding scope at the time, but I'm getting one shortly. But what this thing here is a second camera. It's the Orion Starshoot Auto Guider. And what I try to do with this setup, this is my mount here. It's a Vixen Sphinx mount. The mount head weighs 20 pounds. So that's my heaviest component. And this battery pack weighs about 30 pounds. So, okay, that's my heaviest component. But it's all pretty light. Okay, that's my point. And the parts that I find that need to be very sturdy are the mountings. So I've got the side-by-side mounting system here from Las Mandy. And I also like my focusers to be very, very rigid. And I think to me, that's the biggest thing. I don't actually have sort of those, I don't even have I don't use any electric focuser. I don't use any sort of dual speed focuser. I just use a single speed focusing wheel. But I find that for me, the most important thing is just having everything very steady and rigid. Now, what I do here is I've actually, even when I'm at home practicing here, I use my power pack. I have this orange thing you can hear is a cable, power cable from the house. But I only use that to give myself a bit of heat and light in the shed and to power up my netbook, which is the little laptop. So I try to have the same conditions that I would have when I'm out at dark skies, when I'm at home. And then I won't go through this list, you can see what the other main components are. When I go to dark skies, this is what I typically do, and I have my van. The van kind of becomes my shed. So I'll typically have two cables going from there into my van, and then my netbook is in my van. And the netbook actually, I think, is a pretty recent phenomenon, but it actually makes laptops a lot easier to use in the field because my netbook is only about 10 inches. It's got a 10-inch screen on it. And the best thing about those is they're very power efficient. So it has a 6-cell battery that lasts about 5 hours. And I also have an adapter that lets it run on 12-volt power and allows me to recharge it in my van. So it makes auto guiding, because you need a laptop for auto guiding. Although there's new auto guiders out now that don't use a laptop, but I do use one because with my CCD camera I need a laptop. But I find that using a netbook, which is actually quite inexpensive compared to buying a laptop, to be one of the key things that allowed me to go to dark skies with a portable setup. Okay, so this is now I'm going to show you a couple of pictures that I did from the pad itself, because I live in Canada and it's fairly light polluted. But of course you can do narrowband imaging from light polluted sky. So this is a shot that I did with this setup here. And this is, for narrowband you need longer sub-exposures. So these are 10-minute sub-exposures that I used, and I stacked about 14 of them. So this is about just over 2 hours worth of data. And this is what you're seeing here is the Cygnus wall. This is the North American Nebula, and this area here is the Gulf of Mexico area. This is a very faint object, and so I was pretty happy to get this little detail from the suburbs. But this field, I should tell you, the ST10 has a chip that's about half the size of my DSLR. So this field is about 1.8 degrees by 1.2 degrees. Okay, this is the Pelican, which is actually a nebula that's right next to the North American Nebula. Now this image, I did the same steps that I followed in the previous one. Which is, I think this is about 5 or 6 nights later. Both of these, by the way, were done in September when the moon was out. So this is something that I found I could do when the moon is out. If the skies are clear, you can practice your imaging, but also you can actually take some real shots, which is these narrowband shots. This is actually 3 hours worth, so I had about 18 frames that I processed to get this. Okay, and then RGB, like doing color shots. This was at Nirvana. I wanted to capture these, the M8 and M20 before I lost them for the season. And so they were just setting at the time. But Nirvana has a very good southern horizon. So this is only 30 minutes. This is using 3-minute sub-exposures. It's not the greatest composition. You're looking at a lot of stars here. But my point was to try to get them both into the same field, and I barely managed to squeeze them in. And this is the last photo I'll show you. This is M33, and it's a galaxy in the local group in Triangulum. And again, this is at 480 millimeters. It's about 85 minutes worth of exposure. The difference between this one and this one is here I didn't bin my pixels, so this is like what they would say a full resolution shot, and this is I binned everything 2 by 2. So this is at half the resolution of the previous image. The one measure people use is how many arc seconds of sky is each pixel in your chip seeing. In this case, you're seeing each pixel of my chip was seeing 6 arc seconds of sky, and here it's seeing 3 arc seconds. So the idea is you'd be able to see less detail here, but it's actually still able to pick up a lot of the H2 regions, in M33. And I think for Ottawa skies, if you're trying to get anywhere, like I think going over less than about 2 arc seconds a pixel, or even down to 1, my guess is it's probably not all that easy anyway. So even getting at about 3 arc seconds a pixel, I think is not bad for our skies. So some parting thoughts. I'd say that complexity is a reality in astroimaging, and it comes from all the components, many different components having to work together. So it can be minimized with a lot of planning and patience, but it has to be acknowledged and respected. So it's not, I wouldn't expect to avoid the work that's involved in trying to get decent images. And in a portable setup, I think it's especially the case that you have to manage complexity. I found that repetition is the key to getting consistent results, and it requires a lot of energy, but it's also very rewarding and enjoyable. And lastly, always follow dark sky etiquette. Basically means shield all your lights. Astrophotography involves a lot more electronics than visual observing, and visual observers don't like to see any white light. And also, I don't like to see green lasers, which visual observers love. So I usually ask them to turn those things off. And usually the nice thing about going out with visual observers is that after you set up your gear and you start imaging, you can go and look through their scopes. So that's it.
Well, hi, everyone. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Science Fun Fest event that we had just over 2 weeks ago. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of what Science Fun Fest is all about, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background. It was just over about 2 months ago when our center was approached by someone from Natural Resources Canada, and they said, would you folks be interested in coming and joining us in our National Science and Technology Week event? And I said, well, what's this all about? And they explained that it was a large event that they were hosting on October the 18th, involving a number of federal government departments and nonprofits and so forth. And it was really geared for kids, just to get them inspired and maybe hopefully one day to get them interested in a career in science. Lots of hands-on exhibits and lots of science cool stuff. When there was insect exhibits, there was the space agency was there with a little booth right beside us, and on and on and on. I think altogether there was over 56 in all exhibits, tons of families and so forth. What interested me in this event when it was pitched to us was that large crowds. We were told that last year they had 3,500 people. They did all the promotion. Logistically, they handled, the space and the tables and all the other infrastructure stuff. And that appealed to me a lot because I thought, okay, I don't have to do that. We don't have to do that, and so forth. And as I started to chat with these folks, it became clear to me this was a monster event. Okay, and it was a really well-organized event. So I was quite keen on this. So this happened just over 2 weeks ago. And it was in the Natural Resources Complex on Carling and Booth. There was 2 sites along Carling. And we found out that they don't know the exact number, but this event this year was the biggest ever by far. They figured between 4,500 and 5,000 people attended. And for us, it was the largest outreach event that I think we had the privilege of attending this year. So it was just but bigger than the TAFL music event that we had, far bigger than any of the CARP events we had and so forth. So I'm going to describe a little bit about what our booth was, our exhibits were all about. We had 2 exhibits, an indoor exhibit and an outdoor exhibit. Our indoor exhibit, as I mentioned, was beside the Canadian Space Agency a booth. There's Bob Thirsk showed up, or at least a cardboard facsimile of him. We had a sort of a row of laptops with planetarium software and software controlling PCs and interesting presentations and so forth. We had, as usual for indoor events, we set up telescopes where our members, and Chris here you can see, and Tim in the background, people could peer through the telescope and we're looking at a distant object that was a photo that was posted on the walls. In the background, you can see our stand that we set up with astrophotos and so forth, which always gets a bit of attention. Here's another one here with Paul Harrison, and you can see that we attracted quite a few people, and there were some good discussions that followed with the public, and so lots of interest. It also was part of our indoor exhibit because we were overflowing. The organizers asked us if we could move part of our exhibit out into the hallway. Okay, and initially I was a little worried about this last-minute change, but it turned out to be just a terrific idea. So we moved our meteorite and meteor crater and light pollution display outside into the hallway outside this main room which we were at, and holy smokes, there was a huge amount of traffic there. Lots of people stopped by, and again, you can see a lot of kids and families and so forth. So this went over really well here. By the way, that meteorite casting there is the Abbey meteorite casting, which recently resurfaced in our center. And actually, I have it. Excuse me, I have it just down there. I brought it with me today, and there's a description of it and so forth. It's a casting of a meteorite that fell in Alberta in 1952. So that was quite an eye catcher as well. So here you can see Ron and Chuck, and we had lots of folks that had stopped by and were quite intrigued by what we had to offer. Our light pollution display, and sort of in the front here, it's not in the photo. We had our moon display. Brian with your images that you drew, and of course our globe, our moon globe that we had set up. Here's a shot of Jeremy Booth. Now Jeremy is amazing, and I really have to thank him because Jeremy was handing out all of our the Sky News magazines that we give away for free. We had lots of arts and crafts stuff, where kids could create space images and so forth. And Jeremy is terrific at handing out things. I have a lot of stuff that I've accumulated, IYA stuff that I've accumulated in my basement here, and my wife was really encouraging me to move it on. Well, I want to thank Jeremy because if I'd given him my car keys, I'm sure he would have handed them out. He really moved a lot of stuff. And by the way, I should mention as well that what we always do, I think I've mentioned this before, what we do at these events is we ask people, there's a piece of paper we have, say, well, are you interested in being notified about future astronomy outreach events? And Jeremy signed up 45, 50 names. So of people. So these are names that I'll put into an email list and let them know about future outreach events. Okay, so here's our outdoor event. The outdoor event was held just about half a kilometer up the road in Carling, and in front of the old Dominion Observatory there. And you can see that we had our solar. It's a little fuzzy here. Our solar sign there, and we had set up a series of posters and so forth. In the background, you'll see that the tent that we had set up was quite a large party tent. We got some pretty good crowds. It turned out to be, for this time of the year, I think I think the gods were on our sides because we had clear skies. The temperature was was pretty good, and I was so worried. I thought this is such a large event outdoors. What if it's cloudy? What if it's cloudy? You have to plan something different. But this just worked out perfect, and it made for some terrific solar observing. There were some lineups, great conversation again, with Ken and the team, and it's really nice to hear the oohs and ahs and so forth. So here was our party tent that I talked about. In the party tent, we were making sundials and portable sundials and a little moon star clock as well. And I think it was really neat for people to be able to. We explained to them how they could determine the time of the day, or actually were they to use it as a means to determine where the South Pole was, and that really went over quite well. So in the tent we had Anthony and Shirley Saravillo that were there, and they did a terrific job. I think one of the last slides I got here is So I mentioned that the two sites were our indoor exhibit and our outdoor exhibit were separated about a half kilometer, and there was a bunch of other exhibits that were clustered together near our outdoor exhibit. And what they did was to encourage people to travel between sites, as they had this colorful double-decker bus, and I think families would really like to sort of ride on top of the bus there, and it was kind of, as I was explaining to the folks that were doing the solar observing, it was kind of like the Wakefield train. You know, if you've ever been in Wakefield, you know that once the train arrives, it's just all of a sudden this sleepy town becomes just overflowing with people. Well, that was the story here. So that was kind of nice, and then then there would be this quieter period, and then on would come the bus again. And so this was you can't miss it when this bus comes. So a large group of volunteers that I wanted to thank, just a terrific group of people that participated and helped organize this event, which we put it together fairly quickly here. It's just amazing how on the day of the event, everyone seems to know exactly what to do. And I want to thank every one of them, because it speaks volumes about the spirit in our center and why I enjoy doing so much the role I'm doing. So thank you, everyone. I really am privileged to be working with a group of people like yourself. So what's in the future? We got a couple of events coming up. Our annual event that we have coming up is at the museum. It's the Winter Solstice event, obviously on December the 21st. It falls on a Monday this year. Working with the museum on this to try and understand the extent of what this is involved, because it's on a Monday. They're telling me that it's just an evening star party. Okay, where our members will bring telescopes and allow the public to look through them. I'm hoping that there might be something a little bit more than that, an indoor component as well, just in case there are clouds. So I'll keep you posted. That's again Monday, December 21st. Another event that we have is Eric Kujala will be providing a presentation at his school, at his son's school, in the end of the month here. That's Friday, November the 27th, in Pierre Elliott Trudeau School in Gatineau. So he's going to have an indoor presentation. He's asked some of our members if they could bring telescopes. I will be there, and we'll hand out all, the usual freebies and so forth. If anyone else is interested, and I'll be sending out emails to remind you, that'd be great if we could support Eric, because I think Eric has done a lot for our center, and I think it'd be nice if we could return the kindness. That's it. Thanks, everyone.
Good evening. Last summer in August, rather unusual for it to be in August, the General Assembly of the RASC was held in conjunction with the Saskatchewan Summer Star Party. The SSSP, well, they called it the GASSSP, that's GASP, and there's no truth to the rumor that that was people trying to get oxygen through the rain. That was my rumor, it's not true. So it was held in August at Cypress Hills in southwestern Saskatchewan. First time they've ever held the GA in conjunction with an observing party. It's very odd for astronomers to actually do any observing at any of their meetings, and thanks to the weather, there was very little astronomy actually done at the meeting. There was only 2 Ottawa Centre members there that I'm aware of, and coincidentally, they're the same 2 Ottawa Centre members who were at the SSSP in 2003. And as far as I know, they're the only 2 Ottawa Centre members who have ever made it to the SSSP. So I thought it was worth advertising for them a bit, because it's a fabulous star party. This actually was the first year in 13 years that they've been completely clouded out for the whole event. So let's see. And get this thing to work. Nope, other button, right side. There we go. Okay, so this is the Cypress Hills. They actually raise about 600 meters above the surrounding prairie. It's a beautiful area, not flat, lots of trees. It's quite an extensive resort area, very historical resort. There's or area. A lot of First Nations activity took place there in the past. This is actually more what it looked like most of the time we were there. Threatening rain or raining. We did get a little bit of sunshine and some clear skies, though. There's just another view. I didn't get many astronomy pictures, so I'm showing you some scenery and trying to encourage you to go. So the normal things that we get at a GA, in fact, actually a lot of the events that happen at a GA also happen at the SSSP, so there's a kind of a duplication there between the two. So there are meetings, National Council meetings, we don't want to talk too much about that. As important as they aren't terribly exciting. Lots of talks. Jim Hesser talked about the International Year of Astronomy. Alan Dyer gave a very inspirational talk on a lot of the astronomy he's done over the years. There's some very nice astrophoto shows, some set to some music that I'd never heard of. Diane Nalini has released an album called Kiss Me Like That, and many of you will recognize that as part of the mnemonic that's used to remember the spectral classifications of stars. And she's actually a professor of physics at University of Guelph and also an extremely accomplished jazz singer. So her music backed up a couple of the slideshows. They had a barbecue with bison burgers, of course, being out west. There's the formal banquet, which absolutely was to die for. Steelhead trout in a cream sauce on wild rice. I ate until they ran out. This usual feature of the GAs is the astrophoto contest. You can't really see it much, but on the right-hand side, there was actually astro sketching as well. I think that's the first time they've done that. So there was a couple of drawings of the moon and some deep sky objects. So that a little bit of encouragement to keep people drawing and maybe start entering this this competition. There's also displays. This was one of the astrophotography displays. There was one woman had about half a dozen quilts, all on astronomical themes that she had on display. Remy Lacasse has started the ARP Atlas project. Halton ARP was an astronomer who did a lot of work on peculiar galaxies, interacting galaxies. And Remy Lacasse is actually going through the whole catalog and imaging them all in color at high resolution, which is something that's never been done before. And that's just one of our ASC amateurs from Quebec. And door prizes. They actually had so many door prizes they couldn't even do all the draws at the banquet as they normally do. They had half the draws through the course of the meeting. You had to go in and pick up your prizes. So, Galileo even showed up. I mean, what more do you want? I mean, we did have a whole year of astronomy focused on Galileo and the fact that 400 years ago he was looking at the stars. I still think he looks insufferably smug. Alan Dyer brought along a museum-quality replica of his telescope. This is pretty much exactly what Galileo's telescope would have looked like, except, of course, for the mounting hardware in the middle. That's modern. Alan actually had it out the night before the SSSP started. It was clear, and Alan had the thing mounted on a modern-day mount with an 80 millimeter apochromatic refractor as a finder scope. I don't think Galileo had any of that. But the views through this thing, it's 30 power. Field of view is about half the size of the full moon. The views were absolutely amazing. Really good quality views. It's actually a really nice little telescope. This is the objective end, not the eyepiece. It's something about 10 millimeter aperture. But you can see the interesting workmanship on it. It's quite a nice little piece. I think they paid something about $200 for these. So this now into the stuff that's really specific to the star party. This is a picture of the observing field, one of the few intervals when the sun actually broke through and the winds died down a bit. Basically, it's a big, flat, open campground, Meadows campground at the Cypress Hills Interprovincial Park. So it's very flat, lovely camping, quite good horizons, very dark skies, lots of space for camping. They had over 400 attendees this year, largest ever. And there is other sorts of camping nearby too, if you have family, for instance, who don't want to be, the all-night action stuff. There are vendors, so in case you've got money, you don't have to worry about carrying it all the way home again. The most expensive piece of kit I saw there was $10,000, so pretty much what you want to spend, you can spend it. So as I mentioned, we did get clear skies for a few hours the night before the star party actually started. And of course, fortunately, that was the night of the Perseids. So I did manage to catch several not very good shots, one off the edge of the field. This one's actually showing some nice color. Later that evening, it did clear up again for about 15 minutes, and I did manage to get some star trails. This is I was actually camped over in one of the family campground areas because my wife was supposed to be with me. So this is a view up through the trees of the stars overhead. This is a view through the same trees during the daytime. These are lodgepole pines, which are very characteristic to the area. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. And you can see this is what the forest looks like when you're looking straight through it. They're very straight, uniform trees. They're quite unique. Let's see, a few more scenery, a little bit of wildlife. We see moose there, deer, lots of different kinds of insects, berries. It's a really beautiful, beautiful place to go. This is a view out north of the hills. You can see the rolling hills subsiding off into the distance. A lot of it's cattle grazing. So if you're into cowboys and stuff, there's a lot of that out there. Wildflowers, there's a lot of meadows in the area. There's a few things developing that will make it even more interesting to go in the future. You can see the label for the Dark Sky Campground. The park is actually a dark sky preserve. And just recently, there's a national park a couple of 100 kilometers away that has been designated a dark sky preserve. And the people who work at the park here and are involved in that aspect of things are actually working with the communities between the two to make the whole area a dark sky preserve. It'll be a couple of 1,000 square kilometers. It'll be the largest in the world by the time they're done. And the other thing that they're working on is an observatory. They're collecting money. The other Ottawa Centre member bought the constellation Cassiopeia while he was there because of the W and also the last initial of his name. So they're raising money. They were hoping to start it this past summer, but I think construction's supposed to start this coming summer. And the interesting thing is, you notice it says a planetarium. And I thought, a planetarium under these skies? Why would you want a planetarium? Well, the site actually has, the observatory is going to be up on this little rise here backing against the trees, and then there's this large bowl area in the front. And what they're going to do is they're basically going to set up a planetarium under the stars. So there will be chairs arranged just like if it was a planetarium, and speaking facilities, except that instead of a dome overhead, you'll actually have the night sky. So lots of excitement to come. I've already promised them that as soon as the observatory is finished, I'll go out and live there for a summer and be their resident astronomer. So I'm hoping. So it's a lovely place to go. Normally the skies are fabulous, very, very dark. I was actually observing up east of Saskatoon several days later, the one clear night that we had out there. Skies were about the best I've seen anywhere. So I highly recommend it. It's 3,500 kilometers or so, but if you make a trip out of it, it's definitely worthwhile. So next summer, SSSP on the 12th to the 15th of August at Cypress Hills, as always. And the GA, if you're interested in that, 1st to the 4th of July in Fredericton. So, thank you.
Give me land, lots of land under starry skies above. Oh, thank you. Right. So I wind up traveling around, and I wind up seeing things that other people don't get the chance to see, so I like to bring pictures back to people. And this is a new observatory, or this is a model. First there was a dream, but my camera wouldn't record it. So after the dream came the model, and we'll note a few things about this model. There are 4 observation stations to this model. This is a club observatory, not an individual observatory. There's a roll-off roof, and the back of the roll-off roof faces north. The observatory is south of Calgary, so the back of that roll-off roof blocks off some of the light pollution. There's a wall on the west side. Its purpose is to block the prevailing westerly winds. In winter, it's a little cool out in Calgary. The height supports here are adjustable on the back roll-off tracks. That's a future consideration. I'll talk a bit more about that. The dimensions, it's about 18 feet wide, 8 feet deep, 8 feet high on the walls. And that wind wall, its purpose is to provide wind protection for astrophotographers. It's also to block headlights from late arrivals. Without the roof, there's a couple of things that we can show you in the model. This black thing here is the axle for the roof drive. And there's triangular bracing here for the roof tracks. The few of you who attended the RASC General Assembly in Calgary may recognize Larry McNish, now past president of the Calgary Centre. He designed this new observatory with input from and approval by all the council members. And this is the observatory as it stood around Labor Day weekend. One of the observation panels is open, but at this point the sheet metal roof is closed. The metal roof allows snow to slide off and clear. The south fascia of the roof hadn't been installed yet at that point. To the right of the observatory, there's another concrete pad, the same size as this one. In case this becomes very popular, they'll build a second one. They have a big clubhouse here where there's heat. The observatory has been faced with vinyl siding that's colored to match up with the coloring of the clubhouse, and also the C14 dome, which is their permanent installation. One change from the model is that they've added, not only is there a north door, but there's also an east door for access, making it easier to get in and out, and cutting down on the amount of snow removal that will have to be done. Okie doke. So this is one observer station. You can see here there's a, whoops, get the right button, Brian. This one observer station, the door here lowers. It's a two-person job, particularly in the wind. So you need one person on the inside and one person on the outside, and it's triple spring-loaded hinges to do the supports. The roof can be left in place if you just want to observe out the south face. I have been told, however, hunting ducks from the building is not permitted. There's a green box here. Below that, there's a set of safety instructions for opening and closing the roof, as well as the annual maintenance checklist. They're big on documentation. The east door reveals all four observer stations. What you see here is the expansion joints define the divisions between the four observer stations. And you can, that axle that I was referring to in the model, that's the axle for driving the roof. One of the two red light fixtures is there. Both fixtures are on dimmer switches. This can be used for both equatorial mounts and for Dobbs. So these stands are for Dobsonian mounts, and if you need to, you can raise your scope by 1 foot, by 1 foot, or 2 feet, or 3 feet above the floor so that you can see out the observing station. The shielded power cable here runs to the south side, and each station has its own plug box with 2 outlets. Here's one of the south panels closed, and you'll note the handhold here for lowering or raising that panel. You'll also notice the custom retaining spikes, and I'll show you a bit more about that. I know that looks a little rattly, but the observatory has already endured two windstorms of nearly 100-kilometer winds. It's wide open to the west from here. These are the custom retaining spikes. You'll notice the recycled material that's been used. I don't know if anybody can read the labels. Larry is a retired computer engineer, so he happens to have a fine collection of golf balls that are labeled by various old and some defunct computer companies. Right. Okay, well, the roof does come off onto the back rack. The roll-off roof is supported by 3 posts, and they're attached by triangulation to these roof beams. The 2 load-bearing beams are on the east and west sides, and then there's a north beam and a central beam, and those are merely in tension. And behind, just behind, you can see the fixed observatory roof. Just in case you haven't been to Wilson Cooley, the actual scope is up here on the 2nd floor, and on the main floor there's a meter-wide concrete pier that stabilizes the 14-inch scope on the top floor. Yes, a meter. It's pretty amazing. Okay, north face of the roof, as I said, this is to block off light pollution, but at the same time, the alignment of the sloping roof means that you can still, from inside, if you've got an equatorial mount, you can still spot Polaris and you can do your polar alignment. The north door has a combination lock. The east door locks from the inside. Tubular steel frame supporting the roof. 5 curved arches supporting the frame. Vertical steel straps that are attaching the north face. Cross tubes here and here. Their purpose is they act in tension to prevent the frame from keystoning. And there's some short tubes here to connect some of the arch tubes on the east and west sides. The frame was welded in a machine shop, delivered to the site on a flatbed truck, and hoisted into place by a mobile crane. This isn't exactly your home observatory. This is Larry pointing to the west track, explaining that the arch delivers the load onto the 2 rolling tracks. This is one of the rolling tracks. There's 9 rollers per track. That's 1-foot separations. All the moving parts, the J-tracks, the axle cables, etc., are commercial grade. They're not residential grade. And even before the motorized opener was installed, the roof could be rolled on and off by pushing with one hand. Over time, the concrete pad will probably settle, and so there will be a need for adjusting the supports of the roof rack, and that's what these are. So these are bolts that are have been put down into the concrete, and these can be adjusted up or down to adjust for the fact that the observatory will, over time, settle. These are safety wheels. They're not actually in contact. This is the middle tension beam. It doesn't do any support, and in fact, there is a space here between this beam here and this one here, and in case of settling, then if this beam, if these 2 beams contract their space, then these wheels will prevent the 2 from rubbing together until somebody can come around in a summer and readjust the posts. This is a commercial garage opener driving the axle. They don't use remote controls because somebody has to observe exactly what's going on. And there's a documented procedure on how to do that. And there's also an emergency stop function. In the back, these are the chains and gears running from the opener to the axle. Cables and pulleys are what drive the roof opening and closing off the axle. You can see there's a second red light fixture here, and a warning here that opening and closing the fold-down panels is a two-person job. These are there's a pair of pulleys like this on each end of the axle, one to open and one to close. And there's a metal flange here which is covering the J-track, and that's to keep snow off in the both when the roof is closed and when the roof is open. The south pulley is slack while opening the roof and under tension while closing. The north pulley is under tension while opening, and the pulley is exposed, but it's actually underneath this beam here to keep snow off of it. They could have covered it, but then if there were any ice that had accumulated, no one would be able to see, and part of the opening procedure is check the J-tracks and the pulleys. The cables attach near the middle of the beams on the east and west roof beams. So this is seen here from the outside with the roof half open. Similarly, that's the closing cable. Double cable supplies, double cables, double pulleys ensure that the roof is pulled in both directions from both sides so that it doesn't crab. One last look at the observatory. You can see this is the southern tube arch, and posts here that are holding. What they're actually doing is they're holding up the beam here in tension so that it can ride over and close. That's all, folks.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
I hope you were excited seeing those pulley pictures as I was, because knowing how to string the pulley means more time under a dark sky. I envy people who have observatories.
All right. Well, that concludes the auditorium portion of the meeting, but we still have some entertainment for you this evening. Tonight, after the meeting in the lobby, please join us for conversation, caffeine, and carbohydrates with Anna and Art Fraser. If you're interested in membership, Art Fraser is also the fellow who takes care of that. But please don't wander around the rest of the museum. Our landlord gets upset if we do that. We try to be nice to our landlord. Also, tonight might be a good time to pick up a copy of our observer's calendar. It's composed of excellent photographs taken by members of this club. Also, tonight is your last chance to purchase a ticket for our club's annual dinner meeting, which will be on November 13th, but you have to get the tickets tonight. As a special guest, we'll have a professional astronomer from France. Later this evening, some of us will go to Kelsey's in order to get some real food, some alcohol, and sit down and more conversation. On the 27th, reminder is Eric Kujala's start party for his kids' school. If you don't know Eric, he's the fellow with the camera right here. So come talk to him if you'd like to participate. The next meeting will be December the 4th. Now, it's not our fault. The government Ontario is going to require us to be boring for 45 minutes the next meeting. We have to have our annual general meeting because we're an Ontario corporation. We're going to have to be voting on minutes and listening to financial reports. We have to do this. However, I'm going to try to encourage some members to bring some astronomy displays and some telescopes and things to do in the lobby outside the auditorium. So even if you're a member of the public and you'd be bored to tears to listen to 45 minutes of club internals, you're still welcome to come next meeting and hang out with some astronomy geeks in the lobby. The January meeting, I'm going to mention this now, is on January the 8th. It's the second Friday of the month. This is to avoid having the meeting close to the holidays. And last, I'd like to thank all the people it took to put this meeting on. I hope you had as much fun coming to this meeting as we did bringing it to you.
That's the meeting.